So, this is actually quite recent, 4 months ago to be exact. I just want to clarify that English isn't my native language, but I'll try my best to describe the situation. So, I, 22 male, was waiting for my turn at the clinic with my mother. We were supposed to be next in line to go in after the patient that was already with the doctor at the time. However, that person was there for so long, almost 2 full hours. All of a sudden, I just had a weird feeling that something bad might happen. While we were still waiting outside, all of a sudden, a teenage girl walked in the door with her mother, who was coughing blood and looked to be in really bad shape. Couldn't walk on her own, bloodshot eyes, bruises all over her body. The girl then asked us, there were like 3 middle-aged women in there, and an old man in addition to me and my mom, if someone could help her mom. One of the other women that were there explained to her that this isn't a hospital and that the clinic doesn't have the proper equipment to help her mom. Then someone else told her that there's a hospital nearby with emergency services and gave her its name and location. We then quickly started gathering some money for her before they went. All that while the mom was still bleeding on the couch near us. Once I tried handing her the money, her mom, who didn't speak a word until then, pointed at me and screamed with all the blood coming out of her mouth. It really spooked me for some reason. It sounded like one of those animal screams that you hear when an animal gets severely hurt. Once the girl had collected enough money, I then asked her who told her to come here in the first place. She said the janitor, the short man by the building's entrance, which was super weird since the janitor that we passed before we used the elevator and went into the doctor's office was a strikingly tall man. And he's always the only one there. But of course, I didn't think of that then. Anyways, she got the money and was leaving with her mother. I tried helping the girl, but as soon as the mother saw me, she started screaming her lungs out again. This time, she was crying as well, while still pointing at me. The girl asked the old man to help her to get her mom downstairs instead. At that point, the patient that was with the doctor had finally gotten out. I immediately went in. Just about 15 minutes when I was with the doctor, we heard that agonizing scream again. I was super creeped out from what happened before, but I brushed it off. When I was done with the doctor, I got out of the room and asked one of the women that were waiting there what that scream was, and why did they come back. She said they came back shortly after they couldn't find a taxi outside. Then she said the poor woman was shouting nonsense. She said something along the lines of, "Where is he? Why is he hiding from me?" Again, there were only 2 males in there. I was in the doctor's office, while the old man was still outside. Then the old man went out with them and got them a taxi. When I discussed that with my mother when we got home, she suspected that it was all a hoax by the girl and her mother to scam people for charity. I still don't know for sure if that was the case or not to this day, but that woman's look and scream while pointing at me still gives me the creeps to this day.
Just after 1 a.m., I was sat in my living room watching Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, browsing Reddit. The most boring Saturday night ever. And then someone's knocking. I live with my brother and there's a guy who visits him sometimes, so I assumed it was him and just opened the door. And there was a random man in his 40s, looking kinda sus, saying, "Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm looking for a taxi place." So I said, "Town center," and he keeps apologizing, asking if he woke the kids. He's also very close to my door. I don't have any kids, but I said yes, hoping he'd fuck off. I was scared that if I tried to close the door, he'd push in. I got so anxious I started shaking. And he goes about the taxi again and says, "Can I ask you a question? I got divorced yesterday. You're beautiful." And a car was coming, so I said, "Thanks." I tried to be polite so he wouldn't get angry and aggressive, and shut the door, and I just stood by the window to make sure he was gone. Jesus, how was I so stupid? It could have ended badly, especially that I live in a shitty area and my brother wears headphones all the time. Why was he asking about kids? To see if I was alone? And he went in the direction that the car was coming, so I don't know if it was a random car or someone picked him up. Was he a thief? Or just drunk? And I had the lights on, so he knocked? I really hope it's just that. I really hope I start thinking before doing anything. I worked at a corporate HQ as a receptionist after they announced a very politically divisive celebrity as their new face. This was a very unpopular decision with some people, and threats were frequently called into HQ after this ad campaign rolled out. Around this time, I was closing up my building on their main campus one night alone. It was after dark, and I was locking up the desk. For context, this company's HQ is not open to the public, but people don't really know this, and it's common for people to wander in and ask if there's any points of interest to see, because it's an extremely popular brand. Most people coming to the front desk are employees or contractors, or have meetings scheduled. There are turnstiles, and no one can get past reception without clearance. You have to have a reason to be there. If you're wearing a competitor, you can be asked to leave. A man in a gray jumpsuit walked up to my desk and told me he'd like to speak with the CEO at the time. Obviously, he couldn't walk in and immediately speak to the CEO. I asked if he had a meeting scheduled with him. He said he didn't, but he had some business to settle with him and would like to have him sit down and listen to some things he had to say. This obviously set off immediate red flags. I told him that, unfortunately, only his assistant could set up meetings, and I didn't even know if he was in, etc. The CEO wasn't even in my building, and the brand has hundreds of receptionists. So there was literally nothing I could do. So I just offered every possible excuse and said I could take his contact info. The man then came behind my desk to surveil my computer screen. I could then see he was clearly armed. He spent a few moments arguing that he knew I had the CEO's phone number and office location, to not play dumb, etc. Finally, he leaned over me and told me he was going to step outside for 5 minutes, and by the time he comes back, it would be wise to have the CEO on the phone or in the lobby, or that I better be ready to walk him to his office directly. Fortunately, we have emergency buttons like in a bank. I hit mine, and security called my desk. I explained the situation, and they went looking for him. I guess when he saw security come out, he took off running through the parking lot, jumped over the landscaping, and got away. Security escorted me to my car that night. They pulled the CCTV footage later, and when I saw it, it was so creepy to see his body language in proximity to me from another perspective. He had his hands placed where his gun was concealed the whole time. Another creepy thing, even with his threatening language and demeanor, he was smiling and being weirdly flirty in that condescending, scary way the whole time. Like trying to be charming so that I wouldn't feel justified escalating things or calling for help, maybe. I'm still so unsettled when I think about what could have happened if I had made a wrong move during that encounter. Or if security wasn't only 2 buildings over on a campus that spans miles. Every single nerve in my body was telling me I was in danger. And him running seems to have confirmed that.